Welcome back to the Stretch the Floor podcast. I'm Matthew, and I'm here as always with Venushan, and we are coming to you a couple of games, 2 games into most teams' preseason. It is the best time of the sports calendar. The basketball is starting up again. We're going to be coming with our preseason, our way too early All-Star predictions. Season hasn't even started yet, but we're going to be making our predictions. Compare it to how like our quarter season, then our actual All-Star picks at the end. Anyway, that's going to be a lot of fun. But first, we got to talk a little bit about the biggest storylines from the preseason. Probably the biggest of which is Ben Simmons still hasn't reported. They've played 2 games against the Raptors so far. Embiid didn't play in the first game. He did play in the second game. What's the latest on the Ben Simmons situation in your mind?
So Ben Simmons, I think that Indiana Pacers deal is closing down because I think they have till the October 16th for extensions on Brogdon and LeVert. And if those extensions go through, essentially shuts out the Pacers from ever acquiring Ben Simmons. So Pacers are saying, hey, we're going to extend these guys. These are our final offers. We don't know what those offers are. Like, if you want our offer off the table, and if you're okay with our offer to the table, hold Ben Simmons till December. But if you want our offer, let's try to get something done within the next week. So that's why we're seeing a lot of these Ben Simmons moves, because it's not that both those guys are going to get extended, but one of them might be, and that's going to eliminate the Pacers. So yeah, the Pacers seem heavy favorites because of all this Ben Simmons news coming out. Another deal that we saw got rejected again was CJ McCollum, 3 first-round picks and 3 draft swaps. Portland said no thanks, kind of expected. So probably the Sixers can't leak that to still say they still have a high asking price and stuff like that. Or maybe the Blazers leaked it to get some pressure on the Sixers, but that was leaked by Shams. But a trade might happen in 7 days. It might. There's a small chance. I think it's going to wait till December. So does most of the NBA executives. But 7 days might happen.
Yeah, this is so interesting because the Ben Simmons hate in Philly is getting to like an all-time high. It's getting crazy. Like Embiid was calling him out. He was getting the we hate Ben Simmons chants in a wrestling match in Philadelphia last night. It's just getting to all-time high levels, and the fact that he still hasn't reported in its preseason, is crazy. He's obviously not bluffing. But yeah, like you said, if a deal does get done preseason, it's probably Indiana. But otherwise, I honestly have no idea what's going to happen. And I don't know. I guess it's just going to be business as usual. No Ben Simmons for the Sixers, which obviously greatly affects the East pecking order.
Yeah, and people are talking about like the executive leaks, like, oh, you can't, there's too much player empowerment, whatever. No, this is just Ben Simmons. Like, he's sacrificing millions of dollars to do this. And if anyone wants to sacrifice millions of dollars to make a choice, I think it's fair. Like,
all the power to you, yeah.
Yeah, like, it's very rare this is going to ever happen again. So I don't think any rules need to be changed. I think it's just Ben Simmons is that guy, and he's that confident in his ability. And yeah, he's just that confident in his ability. You're not going to have that much people in the whole world to bet against that. Yeah, so good thing for Ben Simmons.
If it turns out in his favor, like, good for him, you know?
Yeah, but including myself, I don't think it's worth it. I think he could have just came in, played horrible, and been like, hey, like, he could have done a Vince Carter move, right? Which is way worse, where you report to the team 24/7 and say, I'm not going to dunk. He could just say, I'm not going to pass.
Yeah.
And then he's like, and he could just start shooting threes. You know what I mean? Like,
you wanted me to shoot threes.
Every single play, like super contested, deep step backs, whatever, right? Like, that's how Vince Carter got his way out. But he chose a different route. And I think this route's much more respectable because Vince Carter was hated for like 25 years.
Yeah.
I think Ben Simmons will also be hated for pretty long, but not as long as Vince.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Staying on the Sixers, I'm gonna admit I haven't watched a ton of preseason, but the games I have watched have been the Raptors and Sixers. And early on, that center tandem, the Embiid and Drummond started the first game because Embiid didn't play. Looks really impressive. They're one of the biggest teams in the league, and you had Drummond as your biggest fantasy sleeper, which I think is good. It looks really good to me now because Embiid obviously doesn't play the whole game, and he's going to sit some games like he always does. So, just Sixers are really big, and they got some guys like Tyrese Maxey and Isaiah Joe and some Danny Green hitting threes. Tobias Harris is going to be in a bigger role, so they're a pretty interesting team.
Yeah, but without Ben Simmons, expect them to be in the same realm as like those bottom seeded teams,
Yeah.
like the Hawks, the
Mhm.
Knicks, the Bulls, who have played
Pacers. Yeah.
great, the Pacers who are trying to trade for him, but
Yeah.
don't expect him to be with the top three of Miami, Brooklyn Nets, and the Milwaukee Bucks, defending champions. Another team that we did watch a little bit of is the Miami Heat game.
Yeah.
And man, Kyle Lowry looks great. Obviously, as a Raptors fan, like I want him to do well, and he kind of did well. He was just getting a bunch of assists. He was there feeding off of like that energy. Tyler Hero looked pretty decent too. He was just shooting the ball well. First game, I think he dropped like 26. So Tyler Hero's
Yeah.
confidence is not shaken up. He still has that confidence, has that aura that made people like him. Another good game was the Timberwolves Pelicans. Like Cat was just playing crazy that game. Like he was actually playing decent. And one of our favorite players, Nikhil Alexander-Walker, Canadian, someone who I always root for. He also had a big game at like 22. So he wasn't starting though. So
Mm.
I kind of
Yeah.
expected that. Hopefully he wins that starting spot. I don't know why they started Temple.
Yeah.
Defense.
That's weird. That's weird.
Defense is my
It's
only guess.
a lot of questionable starting fives, especially
Yeah.
for our Raptors. Dragic in there over Gary Trent Jr. last night was perplexing, but
Yeah.
I'm just hoping that it doesn't continue in the regular season.
Yeah, I don't want to talk too much about like who's starting and who's not because
It's
going to change a lot. Like Flynn didn't get a lot of playing time with the Raptors.
Yeah.
We expect him to be like the seventh man on the Raptors.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a shock.
Like preseason is more about the back
Young
end
guys.
of the rotation guys, the young and the guys fighting for spots. And you're going to be playing Philly 4 or 5 times in the regular season. You don't want to show them your full hand, right?
Yeah.
Right. So it's,
And they still have to cut people. Like their roster is bigger than it is, right? So
you
want to see like, hey, can Bonga actually, run point at game speed? Because he's doing it pretty well in practices. Can he do it at game speed, right? For the Raptors, because they still have players they need to cut. So I was just using Bonga as an example. And they see, oh, Bonga is great at practice and practice speed, but when it comes to game speed, he's dribbling the ball off his foot. Let's cut him. Let's send him to the 905 or something. You know what I mean? Or someone who played great last season, Freddie Gillipsy. I'm completely butchered his last name. Sorry to all my French people, but he sucks now. Like he's so bad.
Yeah,
and he's probably gonna get cut. Like I thought he was a lock, like him in Utah.
Yeah.
Utah Watanabe still a lock to make the roster, but Freddie's cut most likely. And
I think so.
Kind of showed that. Yeah.
It's so weird because he was like he made his money with his energy and with like his hustle last season, and he's been
he still has like the energy and hustle, but he can't catch a ball anymore.
Yeah.
Which is just surprising.
Yeah.
But preseason is nothing to kind of be surprised about. Only if you're like a super fan of teams like we are, you know these ended bench guys and why they're getting cut. Like Freddie, we'll still watch him play because we're gonna go to G League games and Freddie will be there, so we're gonna see him play there. But don't expect too much from the starting lineup, stars, anything like that.
Yeah, one crazy thing we did see was John Collins dunk, which was maybe one of the best preseason dunks of all time.
That poster is just gonna be that's gonna be a good seller for the Atlanta Hawks.
Even though it's preseason, for sure. We touched on Ben Simmons. Okay, let's just get into our way too early All-Star predictions. If you didn't know, it's 5 starters, 5 bench guys, so 2 guards, 3 forwards, and then for each, and then 2 wild cards. So I'm pretty sure our starters are probably going to be exactly the same, but let you go first. Give me your 5 starters for the East.
For the East, I have Trae Young, James Harden, Kevin Durant, Giannis, and Joel Embiid. Yeah,
exact same for me. James Harden, if he plays regularly enough, is a lock for this, and we all know Kevin Durant, if he plays again, is a lock. Giannis is a lock, and Embiid. Trae Young is the one who is going to make his first starting appearance as an All-Star.
Second, no?
Was he a starter?
He started alongside Kemba the year before last year. And then it's so funny. He's going to go from starter, not an All-Star, starter.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Interesting. My bad. But anyway, Trae Young's going to be in his rightful place as an All-Star starter.
Yeah, he should have made it last year too. It's just going to be a little funny thing. We look back in his career and be like, man, why is this guy randomly miss one? But it is what it is. We can't harp on that too much. We already talked about it for the last 30 weeks. So just give Trae Young his roses. We expect him to be there. Hopefully he gets the credit from the fans and the coaches, the other players, and all that.
Yeah, without stepping too much on the bench guys, who do you think, if one of these five guys doesn't make it, who do you think is the main candidate to make that starting five?
For me, it has to be injuries. So like the front court, I think is
Yeah,
locked. But if an injury happens, Jayson Tatum
yeah,
is kind of like that next guy up. He has a
yeah.
huge fan base. He's like one of the young faces of the league. You expect him to make a jump there. And then someone who can maybe make it over Levine is Bradley Beal, the starter last year. I don't think he should. I don't think he even should have started last year because he just a points guy with a low bad team record. But
Hmm.
he made it last year. He might make it again this year.
Yeah, the team should be better. You
Yeah,
maybe, but
maybe. You
yeah,
never know.
maybe. Like other than that, I don't really think there's too much interesting to
No.
say about the starting five. The bench is where it gets a little interesting. I guess I'll go
Yeah.
first with my bench. I got the guards as Bradley Beal and Zach LaVine, and then the forwards as Jayson Tatum, Jimmy Butler, and Bam Adebayo.
So I technically have those guys too, but
Hmm.
I think Randall will be
Yeah,
Julius Randall will
yeah.
be in the front court there, and then I have Bam in my wild card spot.
Okay.
So we'd have the same guys. I'm assuming you have Julius Randall in your wild card.
Yeah.
So there you go. We have everyone on the bench the same. Beal and Levine, high volume scorers, gonna have huge stats, huge counting stats. Levine's gonna have a good record. Beal's gonna be at least in the play-in, so he's gonna be enough winning to make an All-Star game. Jayson Tatum is gonna be a preliminary All-Star for the next 10 years. We don't need to talk about him. Butler's coming to the end of his prime, but he still always makes it. Julius Randle, most improved. He's gonna put up crazy numbers. The Knicks are also gonna keep his winning ways. We've seen Kemba, like someone who can finally score from the point guard spot and helping the Knicks so much. Yeah, like all those guys, the next five for the East also seems like a pretty good lock.
Yeah, I agree. Interesting that you don't have Chris Middleton in there. Like I haven't. I'll spoil my other wild card. I have Chris Middleton as my other wild card.
Yeah,
Just because
Chris.
he's always an
Yeah,
all star. But
yeah.
yeah, no, I agree with that. I think yeah, it's going to be interesting to see the Bulls because there's three all star caliber players, maybe
Mhm.
even three and a half if you count Lonzo Ball on that team. I think
Yeah,
Levine is obviously the clear favorite to be an all star, but they're going to be taking votes away from each other. I think the
yeah,
Vucevic and the Lonzo Ball and the DeMar DeRozan. As much as I want DeMar and Vucevic to make All Star teams because I really like those players, I
yeah,
just don't see a way it's going to happen unless they have like a 2 seed.
yeah. Like DeMar and Vucevic aren't even my biggest like snub.
Yeah,
Like they're gonna be there, they're gonna be competitive, but the Bulls just aren't gonna win enough games to warrant two starters. I mean, two
yeah,
All Stars.
yeah.
So yeah, they're just not gonna be in there. Uh, my biggest snub is probably your biggest snub as well. That's Jaylen Brown.
Yeah,
Crazy that we don't have him on here
yeah,
because he's gonna
crazy.
average like 25, 7, and 7.
Yeah,
But the only guy that you can see him like you can't really see him making it over anyone unless the Celtics are really good. Because like if they're
exactly.
in the same range as the Knicks, then why do the Knicks have no All Stars? Well, the thing has two. Celtics have two, right?
Yeah,
Or if they're in the same, range as like the Wizards, like how can you warrant him over Beal or something like that, right? And like the only positions that have multiple All Stars are we have the Bucks, who we think are going to be top three. We have the Nets, who we think are going to be top three. We have the Heat, who we think are going to be top three. So unless you're top three, you're going to get one All Star. That's kind of what happened to Jaylen Brown, and I hope it doesn't keep happening to him because that could cause a rift and maybe cause him to force a trade. So I hope it doesn't happen, but it might happen if everyone stays healthy.
yeah, exactly. This stuff just comes down so much to team record. Like if the
Yeah,
Celtics, are a top 4 seed, even I can see it happening over like even a Levine. I wouldn't call Levine a lock, even though he's going to
yeah,
average
no,
26, 27. It obviously depends on team record. But yeah, like the East is pretty cut and dry in terms of who makes it and
yeah,
who the likely snubs are. Sabonis is probably another guy who depends
snub,
on team
yeah,
record. Like if they're a top 5 seed, he makes it, but if they're not, he
yeah,
probably doesn't. LaMelo Ball is interesting. He's not going to make it, but he's
yeah.
he's
He
going to
has the
be
fans. He's gonna
yeah,
be up there and voting.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Another guy, Kyrie Irving, probably not gonna get enough games to make it, but
Yeah.
if he does get enough games, then we're, he is obviously gonna make it. Like they always make it,
Oh,
and he's
yeah,
probably gonna start. Yeah,
it goes without saying. That's the only reason I left him off. We don't
yeah,
need to get into it, but he's probably not going to have enough games. Not
yeah.
that he's not all star caliber.
And then for our Raptors, we do have like all-star level players like Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam. It's just we're not gonna have the record to warrant an
Yeah.
All-Star. We're
Yeah.
gonna be in that playing spot. It's gonna be tough to warrant one. Uh, Kyle Lowry, Heat are gonna be good. I don't think any team in the East is gonna be warranting 3 All-Stars. So, yeah, I think that just sucks for Kyle Lowry. But
Yeah.
yeah, Jaylen Brown, we're gonna talk about him being snubbed a lot. But it's gonna be another conversation where they're like, we could just see it already. Like Charles Barkley and Kenny Smith complaining about they get snubbed, and then Ernie's gonna be like, "Who would you take off?" And then they don't have an answer for that because there's no one that's you could take off, but he deserves a spot too, right? So
Yeah.
it just comes to limitation. And we both surprisingly agreed that Jaylen Brown's the guy that's not going to make it.
Yeah, it's pretty surprising. I think we're just kind of projecting the Celtics record because we're not.
Yeah.
While we like him and Tatum a lot, neither of us think they're going to be top 4 to 5 seeds. So I think that's the only reason.
Yeah. And they have potential though, because we've seen this when it's like they have too much kind of like floor generals and stuff. Like you shy away from your strengths to give people turns. But now it's like they're just going to hone in on their strengths. And another thing is like Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum stats are relatively similar.
They're very similar. Yeah.
So it's going to be tough for Jaylen Brown to keep getting slighted again and again and again because he might force a trade, and these ones might just build up for you because once you're that level of player, you're going to start thinking about your legacy. You're going to talk about like money, endorsements, because that all like being an all-star, like so much casual fans know you now, and it's just going to hurt not getting that nod.
Yeah, it feels like there almost needs to be one more wild card. Not like I don't want it to be too easy to get into the All-Star game, but it seems like there's always one very glaring snub every year. So maybe one more wild card would be a good idea.
Yeah.
Although someone always gets injured, so someone always ends up getting that wasn't in there, but I don't know.
Yeah, and there's going to be some people that just sit out the game, right? Like mild ankle sprain where they could play in if it's a regular season game, but they sit out if it's just for the All-Star game, right?
Yeah.
So I expect Jaylen Brown to be playing. I expect Sabonis to be playing. I expect 2 guys to be hurt, and I expect both their top 2 snubs to make it.
Yeah, knock on wood. We don't want anyone getting hurt, but it's going to happen. Yeah. And Jaylen Brown's probably going to get in, assuming all goes well. Yeah, let's move on to the West. Maybe a little bit more interesting. Maybe at least snub-wise a little more interesting. I guess I'll start with the starters first. I don't think the guards, Steph and Luka, Jokic as one of the front court guys, and I got LeBron James and Anthony Davis as the 2 other forwards.
I disagree with you on one spot, and I think Paul George is going to get over Anthony Davis. Just because I think Paul George is going to have a crazy numerical season. I think it's going to be back to his MVP season, and we all think Anthony Davis should be the top guy. We all expect him to be the top guy. He's even saying it in interviews how he has to be the top guy. But I think he's the guy that's going to be like, okay, I'll get less points. I'll average 23 like last season instead of averaging my normal 25. And I think he will take a step back for LeBron and Westbrook. I still have him as an all-star. Don't get me wrong. I just think Paul George's crazy numerical stats are going to get him that starting spot over 80.
See, I'm kind of leaning the other way. I think this is we say it every year, but I think this is
every year
that he does decide to become the top guy on the team, but it's fan voting and he's not going to beat LeBron out for a starting spot. So that's impossible. So maybe that does happen, but also there's a million Laker fans out there. So they're going to be voting for Anthony Davis, but I don't know. We'll see. I think if I were to pick, I would say it should be Davis and Paul George, but it's fan voting. So I put LeBron in there. And anything else to say about Steph and Luka? Yeah, pretty obvious. Yeah, Steph
and Luka is obvious. We don't need to talk about that. That's how like also so is LeBron and Jokic. Those 4 are locks. The one with 80 is I do think he's gonna start. Like if I was saying like trying to think who's gonna start, I think Anthony Davis will start, but I think PG should start. But I think Anthony Davis will start. And we say that last year too. I remember us having this exact conversation. We're like, bro, they just came off a championship, shortest turnaround ever. So LeBron's just going to take a step back and feed it to Anthony Davis. And LeBron was tweeting stuff like, oh, MVP season from my boy AD, breakout season for THT and Kyle Kuzma. At the end of the day, LeBron James was an MVP candidate before he got injured, and he was averaging 28, 7, and 7. Like, that's the only way he knows how to play. He's been playing like that for 19 years. Like,
and add in another guy.
and add in another guy who's doing that for 13 years.
Yeah.
dunking and scoring whatever he wants. Like those guys are going to be so used to the way they play, and Anthony Davis is going to be the guy like, man, I'll take a step back. I'll take less shots. Like it's just
Yeah,
their personality.
it's
You know
just
what I mean?
personality wise. Anthony
Yeah.
Davis, he's I don't think it's controversial to say he's probably the most talented player on the team right now, just with his
Yeah.
athleticism and his age.
Yeah.
But just personality wise, he doesn't have that killer mentality that those two guys have that refuse to
Yeah.
back down. He's like you're right. He's totally fine with just backing off and playing that second or third role.
Yeah. Like when it's down 8 points, like they're like Russ Westbrook's gonna be like, all right, let me attack the rim the next three
Yeah,
plays and trying to get
sure.
6 points, right? Or Anthony
Yeah.
Davis is gonna be like, okay, let me set the pick and try to get this guy a wide open layup,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
just mentality. It's nothing wrong with him because that's how he got a championship, right?
Yeah.
That willingness to take a step back while still being Anthony Davis and getting like 25 points.
Yeah.
That's what got him a championship, but is what it is.
But then he'll carry them on the defensive end, which doesn't get valued as much as it should for all-star voting, selection. But yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, he's my pick. We're going to talk about this next year, but next week. But
yeah,
he's going to be up there for everyone's defensive player of the year.
Yeah,
and we'll talk about that next week.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the bench. I just went, so you go first.
Yeah, so I got Dame and Devin Booker as my guards,
and
then I got Anthony Davis, obviously. I got Karl-Anthony Towns, and I got Zion as my forwards.
Okay, so it's the exact same situation. I have Devin Booker as a wild card, and I have Donovan Mitchell as my guard.
Donovan Mitchell as a wild card.
I got Dame, Paul George, Zion, and Cat as the other guys. So it's the same, just a little bit different of an order. Damian Lillard, don't need to say anything about Damian Lillard. Don't need to say anything about Paul George. We already talked about him.
Yeah.
Mitchell versus Booker, I guess, is something we seem to talk about every year because the Suns and Jazz are always like right there with each other. I just think the Jazz are going to have a better record because they
always do.
Always have a better record. Nothing against Devin Booker.
Yeah. The reason I did it is because Devin Booker is just that guy, like personality-wise, that Donovan Mitchell isn't. He plays in Phoenix. He has a supermodel girlfriend. You know what I mean? Like he's just a bigger personality than Donovan Mitchell, at least to casual fans. So I think like he's gonna get a lot higher in fan voting. I know this doesn't affect fan voting, but it's gonna be in coaches' heads, right? Like, oh man, like we have to get Devin Booker in. Like, look at all these fans voting. He's averaging 23, and they're the second seed. Like the fans are gonna go crazy on us if we don't get him, right? So he's gonna get a lot of fan voting from that. Donovan Mitchell, he's a lock for the next like 10 years. Like it's crazy. Both these guys are going to make it. Both these guys are incredible. It's just whichever team does better in the playoff, that person's going to be better going into next season. That's how close they are. And right now, the Devin Booker and the Phoenix Suns did better, so he has a slight edge.
Yeah, that's exactly it. There's nothing more to say. These are the two of the best shooting guards in the entire league, and they're both young, and they're both coming off amazing playoff performances. They're going to have the exact same stats probably. Are very similar, and it's just going to come down to team record. And Booker is the more popular player, but I don't know how much that matters with coach selection for the bench. But they'll both be in there.
Yeah, and talking about popularity, a guy that we both had on our reserves, Zion Williamson.
Yeah,
he could easily start over Anthony Davis and PG.
Good point.
Because he's that popular. He's gonna be crazy this year, as he is always. He averages like 27 on 60% field goal percentage. So he's going to be a lock to make it, and he might even start.
I didn't even think of that. It's a really good point because I'm trying to think like what's the most likely popularity thing to happen is going to be, Zion over Paul George or Davis could very, very well happen. And honestly, it might be deserved too, because he's going to be averaging 27 on 62% from the field.
He's a 6'6" Shaq, literally.
And then Cat is the other one. I guess we're both expecting the Wolves to finally be somewhat respectable of a team, a play-in level team. If they're not, then I don't even know what to say. But Cat is going to be a top 6 fantasy guy this year. He's going to be averaging his usual 26, 10 boards, 4 assists, block and a half with threes. When he's healthy and he's playing and his team's winning a decent amount of games, he's an all-star lock.
And it's not even like his team needs to improve to win games. Give him last year's Anthony Edwards and give him a healthy D'Angelo Russell. They'll be playing. Like that's how good Cat is. Like he's incredible. People forget. And he also just came off the hardest mental year in his life where he was thinking about retiring. And now that I'm not saying he's over all that, but now that like he's had time to adjust to that, adjust to like his new life, right? Because he had to
Yeah.
adjust. He had so much things happen
Yeah.
that he has like a new life, literally. Now that the time he has adjusted to his new life, he's just gonna be back to Conti Town's ways, and he's gonna be amazing as always. And yeah, like he could do everything as a center.
Yeah, he's probably in like my top 5 to 10 players that I'm excited to watch this year because the
Yeah,
Wolves, like you said, with Anthony Edwards, his second year improvement with healthy Russell with Malik Beasley in there, and to be honest, I don't even know who the new Chris Finch is their coach, right? The former
Chris Finch,
Raptors
yeah, the
assistant.
former
Yeah, with
Raptors
Chris,
assistant coach.
another
Yeah,
year of under his system and everything
yeah,
like that. Yeah, Cat's gonna be amazing. I just hope
yeah,
he's more durable than usual because if he is, he's a
yeah,
monster.
yeah. And I think like they're finally gonna try to like make that push, right? Like no more like sit the guys or whatever. I think
Yeah,
it's gonna be
yeah,
like, hey,
yeah. No,
let's make the
yeah.
push. It
This
is
is
what it
like
is.
they can't tank again, no matter how bad their season
No,
starts. It does like they're going all in no matter what.
yeah, because if they keep doing that with the new ownership and stuff,
Yeah,
Seattle might be the move, right? So they
yeah,
have to do it for Minnesota. And we think Finch is going to definitely do that. He's going to definitely try to push for that.
yeah. And they have the talent. They have the talent to get
Yeah,
it done.
for sure.
So okay, so I guess
Last
just the
reserve
last
spot.
wild card. Who do you have for your last wild card?
This is the hard one. I was thinking about
Yeah.
all the teams that can make it potentially here and there. But I think Rudy Gobert is just going to get in
Mm,
there. Yeah.
okay. I have Russell Westbrook. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 3 All-Stars for the Lakers, who I don't think are going to be the 1 seed.
Yeah.
It's tough, but it is the Lakers and it is Russell Westbrook, so I went with Westbrook.
Yeah. The reason I went with Rudy Gobert is because the Jazz just have, they remind me of like the Phoenix Suns, like back in the day where they just like constantly the first seed in
Yeah,
the regular season,
yeah.
where they're just the first seed over and over again, and then their system gets exposed come playoff time. Like the 7 second system got completely
Hmm.
exposed, and then years later it got evolved into the Warrior system. But this 5 out system or like 4 out at one center system just feels like a regular season team that's just gonna be the first seed until those like bench guys start those like starters start getting old,
Mm.
Bogdanovich, the Ingles, when those guys start getting old and they have to replace those, maybe they slip, but they just seem like the first seed
Yeah,
again.
yeah. But and All-Star is a regular season award. It's not.
Yeah, it's not a playoff
Do we
award.
think you're good enough to win a championship? It's regular season
No,
award. That's
yeah,
what that's why DeMar DeRozan was always an All-Star starter
yeah,
and all that stuff. So yeah, I can definitely see that. And if they're the 1 seed, it has to be Gobert. Like you can't
yeah.
not give one All-Star to the 1 seed. But Westbrook, like he's still gonna be averaging close to. Sorry, yeah, he's still gonna be averaging close to a triple double.
Yeah,
Like I don't know where the assists are gonna be, but they're still gonna be high, and he's still gonna be averaging 20 and 10
yeah,
rebounds. We know that. So if they have any like if they're a top 3 seed at least, he's gonna be in contention.
yeah. Westbrook, I was thinking about it, but I just can't give three to any of the
Yeah,
teams. I think
yeah,
because I don't think any team when I like think of three All Stars, I think of like a situation where like the Nets where they weren't
yeah.
blowing people out the water, but it's because James Harden got like traded, whatever, midway.
Hmm.
Or I think of like the Celtics back in the day when they were just like the clear number one seed in the East, right?
Yeah,
Or like, yeah, I just think of like if you have a clear advantage over the number two seed in your conference, then yeah, you deserve three All Stars. The talent pool is so high and
yeah.
everything. Like the number third, like he's the number three guy is having so much an easier time playing basketball because of the first two guys that I'd rather give it to
True.
the other guy.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
The snubs are where it gets pretty interesting here because there's a lot of guys like John Morant's my number one snub. Other outside of Rudy Gobert,
Yeah.
Ja is my number one snub. Chris Paul, we know as long as he's on the court, he's gonna
Yeah.
be putting up numbers. DeAndre Ayton as well. De'Aaron Fox and Shea is gonna be putting up the numbers. He won't have the record,
Yeah.
but he'll have the numbers.
Yeah. And then obviously Kawhi Leonard injury. We
Yeah.
expect him to be out the whole year. Jamal Murray, we expect him to be out the whole year or at least until
Hmm.
post All-Star break. We expect Klay Thompson to be out till December 25th was his
Hmm.
targeted date, Christmas. Most likely he's gonna play January. So he's not gonna make it. Christian Wood, he's gonna put up crazy stats,
Yeah.
go
Good
crazy with
point.
the Rockets, but he's not gonna make it because their records are not gonna be good enough. Chris Paul, you touched on him. I don't think he's gonna have the stats. Like I think he's gonna be like
Well,
15 points,
the Chris
like
Paul
8
stats
assists.
with
Yeah,
the winning impact.
yeah. I think like this year, like I think that the pace increase, the team's like talent, just like the NBA talent increase. I think like those Chris Paul Lowry numbers just aren't going to be
Mhm.
enough. I think both those guys are going to be talked about by media because Chris Paul gets you more. Chris Paul has Chris Paul fans, right? It's going to get you clicks by the media.
Yeah.
Same
Yeah.
with Kyle Lowry, but I don't think both of them don't have a realistic chance of making it. Uh, Aiton's a good choice because like he's going to have winning. He's going to be safe. They're the first seed, right?
Yeah.
Instead of the
Yeah.
Jazz. Like I think the Jazz are going to be, but they just went to the Western Conference Finals. Safety figured itself out, become the first seed. Aiton's a good pick too. John Moran is probably, I think he's probably like the guy most people are gonna put in there.
Yeah.
I put Gobert, you put Westbrook.
Yeah.
Because if John Moran is averaging like 26 and like the 8th seed or the 10th seed, he's probably making it. We just expect the Grizzlies to take a step back, but we've expected the Grizzlies not to be in the play-in for the last 2 years, and they did make
Yeah.
it both times. So hopefully John Moran could prove us wrong. Shea is someone I wish
Mhm.
Shea makes it as a Canadian. That'll be sick. Uh, when's the last All Star we had as a Canadian? Was it Steve Nash?
No, there's no way because Murray hasn't been an All-Star yet, right?
No, Andrew Wiggins hasn't. Shea hasn't.
Wow.
Steve Nash.
Wow.
Yeah, so like
That's
this will be
wild.
huge for
That's
Teague
wild.
and like it'll be huge for us. I do think they have a chance because they were like kind of decent before everyone got shut down and injured.
Yeah.
But they did trade like Al Horford and all those guys. But you never know. You never know. Derek
Yeah.
Favors might start averaging
Yeah. You
10
never know.
rebounds. Yeah.
Pokashevsky might go off. You never know.
Yeah. Averaging 4 blocks. I
Yeah.
hope Shea makes it. He's from Hamilton. He's from my area near us. We would love to see him make it. He has a chance. He has a chance.
He does. Yeah. He
Yeah.
he definitely has a chance. Maybe. Yeah. It's gonna be tough though. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got to beat out Jaw.
Did you touch on De'Aaron Fox? Because
Oh, I didn't
honestly,
touch on Darren Fox.
I don't know what their record's going to be. They're going to be around that play-in range too, most likely, but he's going to have the numbers.
Yeah. I just think the Kings are gonna suck. Like they're gonna be playing, but like the lower end of the play-in.
Yeah.
They just always suck somehow. And
Yeah.
they have players that don't want to be there to start the year in Buddy Hield and Marvin Bagley. They have players
True.
that are supposed to get traded in Buddy Hield. They have young players that are supposed to start in Tyrese Halliburton.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably gonna be playing the small forward, even though he's like 200 pounds.
Yeah.
They have the young prospects who aren't really young, and David Mitchell, who's ready to make an impact now, might not get the minutes. So like, and then they have
They're a mess.
they
They're a
have the
mess.
worst coach in the league by
Yeah.
far.
Yeah.
So yeah, they just have too much going on. They need to fire their coach, make a trade, get these guys out, and just come back like relaxed.
Yeah. That's a good point. I think. Yeah, I think that's a good place to end this. I think we touched on every snub, every potential All-Star. I can't even think of one guy who's like who we didn't mention who could force his way into the All-Star conversation. Can you? Unless it's just someone completely out of nowhere.
Yeah, like
you brought
Julius
up Christian
Randle.
Wood.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like Julius Randle, we didn't expect to make it last year.
No.
That's because he made a huge jump, right? Like someone might make a huge jump and make it, but how you can expect that, right? How you gonna like? I guess the huge jump will be Michael Porter Jr. If he makes a huge
true.
jump,
Yes. If they're a
see
2 seed, then Michael Porter Jr. is probably an All-Star. We didn't mention Ingram either. I don't think they're gonna have the record for 2 All-Stars, but if let's say the Pelicans somehow are like a 4 seed, Ingram might.
Jonas Valanciunas is that good. He's just that spacer that he needs to shoot.
Yeah.
The Pelicans, both their stars are averaging 25. They're like the 3rd seed. They might happen. Oh, another guy we never mentioned, CJ McCollum. Kind of like the preliminary snub. Like I don't think he'll ever make an All-Star game in his career.
He even got snubbed from our snub list.
Yeah, he's even got snubbed from our snub list. He'll just be probably the best player ever to not make an All-Star team. Like I think Mike Conley was gonna win that award, but he made an All-Star team last year.
Yeah.
And I think CJ McCollum is like the leader for that award now.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even like in the East, maybe like let's say the Hawks are a 3 seed. You think like a John Collins, if he's averaging like 23, or like even like Bob Bogdanovich or something.
Man, like I'm a huge fan. Both of us are like we love the Hawks. I
Yeah.
love Drake Collins. He won me the championship for fantasy. But the fact that he didn't make an All-Star game last year, I have no faith in any other Hawk making an All-Star game.
Mm.
Like this team just gets routinely disrespected by the actual like sports media, like Stephen A. Smith
Yeah.
and stuff. Like people still have the Hawks like being like a 7th seed, 8th seed. Like
Yeah, that's crazy.
they just went to the conference finals and you're gonna disrespect them like that, having them as a low seed. Some people even had them in the play-in, like 7, 8. Come on, like
No.
that's crazy. The Hawks just get routinely disrespected. Hopefully Trey's a starter, but I would be so surprised if anyone else gets in.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think that's a good place to end this. Yeah, we covered everything. Thank you everybody for listening to this episode of the podcast. We'll be coming back next week with our are we doing
Awards.
We're doing awards next week, and then we're going to do
Yeah.
a season preview with our predictions, our
Yeah.
standing predictions, all that stuff. And then basketball season's back. So, like I said, best time of the year. Again, thank you for listening to this episode. Check us out on all our social media platforms, Instagram at Stretch the Floor Podcast. Check out our YouTube channel and subscribe, STF Clips, for all the best clips from the podcast. But most importantly, subscribe to the podcast feed on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get them. And we will be back next week. And thank you again for listening.